Welcome to the Adult in the Room podcast, special West Coast, Mest Coast edition, where we like to dig a little deeper into issues that concern Washington, Oregon, and California, the crazy left coast of America. And what are they doing in the left coast? They are raising taxes and causing such harm to people that they are leaving in droves. And in Oregon, the governor there, the unfortunately named Tina Kotek, just signed a new tax package that includes higher gas taxes and higher transportation taxes in general, and is going to cause more people to leave my home state. And it makes me sad. And it's dumb. And now what has happened is people have taken to the streets. And what I mean by that is, like, when normal people take to the streets, they come with petition signatures. They are signature gatherers, and they're out there saying, hey, Oregon, wake up. We want you to sign this petition so that we can put this stupid gas tax to a vote and get a little sanity around here. And that's exactly what's going on. And a man with insight into how that effort is going and what's going on in the intricacies of Oregon politics is Mike Riley of Riley Research Associates. Mike Riley, old friend, certainly an old friend of my radio days, and certainly now a new old friend to the Adult in the Room podcast, West Coast, Mest Coast edition. Mike, what's going on?
Good to be with you, Victoria. It's been a pleasure. It's been a while.
Yeah, I know. We haven't played radio for a while. And you're always insightful. You've got numbers. You do research. You tell us what's really on the minds of Oregonians. And you've got some new survey that you've done recently on the gas tax. Tell me, first of all, a little background about the gas tax. That I know you are much more conversant on it than I am. So tell us what we need to know about that.
Well, the governor and the legislature pushed through a $4.5 billion tax increase to help cover a $600 million deficit in ODOT. And the Republicans were staunchly opposed to it, and they went out of their way to try to find alternative solutions to raising taxes. But the governor and the legislature were not hearing any of it. And so with no Republican support at all, they literally dragged a Democratic senator out of his hospital room to get him to vote on the tax legislation, and using their supermajority, they got it passed with no Republican support whatsoever, despite 97% or like 90+% opposing testimony from citizens on the matter. So a group of leaders, including Bruce Starr, Senator Ed Deal, and Jason Williams of the Oregon Taxpayer Association, became chief petitioners on this effort to get 78,000 signatures in time by the end of the year to get this on the measure.
And so we're going to go for the ballot. And this is the website, at least the landing page on the website for this effort. And it's pretty professional deal, and I'm sure it's going to cost a lot of money to do it. And I saw the petitioners out there on the streets. I followed them on Twitter or X, as we're now calling it, of course. And how close are we to getting? I say we because I am in this. I'm in it. Oregon's my home state. A lot of my friends, you're in Oregon. All my friends are in Oregon. Not all of them, but I have made other friends, but but so many of my kin are there, and this really harms me. It hurts my heart. And so, what's really going on here? Would you mind telling me what's really going on? Why did they do that with all the billions when they needed millions? In fact, it's arguable whether or not they needed millions anyway.
That's true. There was a revised budget just released that showed that the $300 million shortfall they were predicting is really only about 57 million at this point. So it's a revised forecast suggesting they didn't really need to do it. And in fact, the Republican senators met with ODOT and said, how could we help you live within your means? They gave them a lot of ideas, but the Democrats weren't interested in any of them. So they hired me to conduct a poll. Why?
Yeah.
Because they can, because they have a supermajority in both the House and the Senate in Oregon, and that supermajority allows them to pass tax increases without a single Republican vote.
I mean, it just seems like it's very heavy handed. They just don't give a flying flipping frittata, do they? Nothing. They don't care about the other people.
No, they assumed that they could do it. They did it because they could, and so this petition effort immediately sprang up. And ironically, Governor Kotek sat on the bill for weeks. She was supposed to sign it when it was passed. She sat on it for as long as she could in order
Mhm.
to limit the amount of time the petitioners had to get signatures to make it qualify for the ballot.
Well, I mean, I guess there's one thing. Maybe they didn't put an emergency stipulation on it, so it would not preclude people from taking it to the initiative ballot. But I don't even know if you can do that with a tax increase anyway. But I'm glad that didn't happen, regardless of the outcome.
Well, they did declare it an emergency initiative, and it was to go into effect January 1st.
Well,
Assuming
how'd we
the
get around that? That's why I thought we got around that, and that's why the petitions were going. Okay, so I stand corrected. What the heck, man?
Yeah, they got. I don't think the tax. I don't think the initiative process is going to be as expensive as they thought, because according to Senator Ed Deal, as of last weekend, they already had nearly 2/3 of the necessary signatures in the first week of signature gathering. So it's looking like, if I had to guess, I'd guess they would have enough signatures by the end of November to get it to qualify for the ballot. And as soon as it qualifies for the ballot, there's a freeze on the tax increases. So they don't go into effect in January as they were scheduled to. They would go into effect after the vote in November 2026.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. Okay, so you're going to have to get like 3 times the number of signatures that you thought you'd need because, of course, I'm sure there are a lot of bad actors out there trying to spoil petition pages and that sort of thing. I hope you guys are Jason and all those guys are out there making sure that's not happening. But we all know that that does happen. We know that in Washington State, for example, there were people out at, really getting in the faces of people who are collecting signatures for petitions. It's happened in California. And in fact, I remember 2004, it was happening in Oregon. So, okay,
But this is kind
now
of different though, because I think roughly 86% of the people we polled said that they would be willing to sign a petition. Yeah, it was
let's
86%
look at your
said.
numbers. Can we bring up your numbers?
Oh, sure, sure. This is the question on whether you'd be likely to sign a petition to support the initiative to give the voters an opportunity to weigh in on it. And as you can see, 86% of the people are somewhat or very likely to sign this petition, with only 4% refused and 11% said they were unlikely to sign it. So that's fascinating in and of itself. I was at a car wash yesterday, and as I was waiting for my car to be done, I thought I'd ask people around me if they were available to sign the petition. Of the 4 people I asked, 3 of them had already signed it. So it's very
Wow.
popular. Yeah, it's a very popular initiative. And
Why? I mean, keep going. I'll ask in a minute.
I'll just share the results of the survey, which asked about whether or not people would support this if it makes it to the ballot, which it very, very likely will. And what we found was that 67% of likely voters would vote to overturn the new taxes. Now, there's a new tax on gas, up 6% on gas, new fees on titles and registration. Registration fees double, and title fees triple, and they're also going to double the employer mass transit tax. The employer payroll tax would
Oh,
double
geez.
under this bill.
This is all the bailout TriMet, which is the light rail thing,
Yep.
and fewer people are riding, and people don't feel safe, and there's a reason that people aren't riding, and they were going to do anything to bail this thing out. That's really what was the underpinning of the tax increase. But then they went and got real piggy, and they asked for billions more that they didn't need. Where do you think they're going to put that money, Mike Riley?
Oh, your guess is probably better than mine on that, but the petition chief petitioners decided that this was something that they would not stand for, and they're aggressively getting signatures now. And I'm very confident they'll get those signatures probably much quicker than they were expected to. So as you can see, 67% of the likely voters said they would vote to overturn the taxes. 21 said they'd vote to sustain the taxes or keep them, and 13% were unsure at that time. What's real interesting to me is some of the demographic differences. If you look at some of the age group differences in there, you can
Hmm.
see that seniors are among those most likely to overturn the taxes.
Sure.
Seniors are one of the strongest, most dependable voting blocs, among whom 70% said they will vote to overturn those taxes.
Yeah, which page is
Uh,
that? I'm not seeing that. Tell me where it is, where you're
that's on
looking
a
at.
that would be right here under somewhat yes or strong likely to vote in
Sorry.
favor of the tax.
Okay.
Um, 23 and 47 adds up to 70%.
I
70%
see.
of these seniors that would vote to overturn
Okay.
the tax,
All
including
righty.
47% who said so strongly,
Uh-huh.
compared to
Nice.
those under 70, among whom 62% said they would vote to overturn it.
That's
Um,
pretty good. That's real
Yeah,
good.
it's a very strong, and you would expect that Republicans would support this. And indeed, among Republicans, 93% will vote to overturn the new taxes, including 80% who said strongly. And then that compares to 75% of the non affiliated or independent small party voters. But even among Democrats, 45% of the Democrats would vote to overturn this new tax,
Wow.
compared to just 35% of Democrats who would vote to keep them, and a handful are undecided. But even among Democrats, more Democrats would vote to overturn these new taxes than will vote to support them when it comes to the ballot measure.
They really have stepped in it. A big, big political cow patty, the Democrats here.
It is. It is. And certain congressional districts, as you could imagine, are more or less in favor of it. But even in Earl Blumenauer's very, very liberal Multnomah
Jeez.
County district, more people would vote to overturn that tax than would vote to sustain it.
I used to say on the radio all the time, and I still say it, and that's, look, they always talk as if, well, it's just a few pennies. It's a little of this and a little of that. And it's like, wait a minute. Okay, I've got one wallet, and I don't know about you guys, but it's all coming out of one wallet. So you think it's a little over here, and then you've got a little over here, and then it comes a little over here. And pretty soon, I only have so much money in my wallet, and you guys are stealing so much of it. And people get that. They really get it.
Yeah, I guess most people do, but I mean, there are certain areas in the state of Oregon where will vote reflexively to support whatever tax measure comes down the pike. And
Hmm.
a lot of people, especially those on fixed incomes, are just tired of it.
Absolutely. How would you say
So,
that the? Oh, well, go ahead, Mike. You talk. You're the
no,
you're the
no,
expert.
I'm curious about your questions, but
Oh,
it just
well, I was just going to say, what's the state of play in the state of Oregon right now? I mean, Kotek is not terribly popular, is she? I mean,
she
are people
is she is
finding out
not.
about her? No.
She is not, but she's kind of doing what she was put there to do, which is to support the unions, the public
Mhm.
employee unions in particular, who will do everything they can. In fact, one of my lobbyist friends told me that he believes that when this qualifies for the ballot, the Oregon legislature, which is going to meet in late January, February of next year, is going to propose additional legislation to get around this. Either move the election up to a special election where they think the voter turnout will be low enough they might be able to have more leverage, or to change the law that exists in order to try to appease the voters and come up with a better sounding or better, perhaps a little bit less intrusive measure. So the Democrats are going to have a response to this. And many think that it will never get to the November election like this ballot initiative is calling for.
Yeah, it would be on the November 2026 election, when midterm elections, a very uh, well attended kind of a deal for voters in the state of Oregon. That's, they don't
But
want
the
it there, do they?
problem with their thinking is that we targeted likely voters for this survey. So
Hmm.
these are people who
Yeah.
have a history of voting in at least three out of the last four elections,
Hmm.
primary and general elections. These people will be voting in the special election, and it's not that hard to get somebody to turn out, even in a mail-in ballot on a special election, if your cause is correct and if the messaging is correct. And I think the messaging is all correct on this one for the ballot measure proponents.
You have to get somebody to give you a ballot title.
They got that. They got that. They said actually the Secretary of State was pretty cooperative with them,
Hmm.
helping them get that passed and authorized pretty quickly, so that they could start printing the signature collection sheets and getting them out to people quickly. And it's
Do
going
you
very fast.
do you have the name of the ballot measure right now? I mean, I don't know. I guess it's probably on that picture, isn't it? Maybe
Um,
vote no.
Yeah, there's a couple of things they're calling it. The no on the gas tax increase. There's a number right to vote on the gas tax pack, and a number of players. I don't know the name or the exact language of it, but essentially it's
Okay.
going to have to say, would you vote to keep these taxes or would you vote to overturn them?
No, no crazy dipsy doodle. A vote, no vote means yes, and a yes vote means no.
Well, it's a little bit
Sometimes
like
they do
that
that.
in that
Oh,
in that they have to say yes, I want to keep the taxes, or no, I want to get rid of them.
okay.
One other
That's
interesting
interesting.
wrinkle is that in the legislation there was an increase in the tax and fees on electric vehicles, because electric vehicles don't pay gas taxes, and so they thought the bill actually increased fees on electric vehicles to help compensate for the fact that electric vehicle owners were not paying gas taxes. Well, the leadership on this ballot measure decided to leave the electric vehicle part into it, because a lot of people were not particularly opposed to that. They'd like to see electric vehicle owners paying their share.
Hmm. Huh. Interesting. That's one way to do it.
So
Well,
we're pretty confident the signature collection is going very quickly, and they have software, by the way, that it'll identifies the voters and will weed out duplicates, so that people can't play that game and try to get votes
right.
disqualified by signing petitions more than once.
Hmm. Or just spoiling the
Elmer Fudd,
petition. Right,
Elmer
right. I
Fudd,
mean,
Bugs
just
Bunny.
fake names, or as you say, just doing it twice, which will spoil one sheet of names, and so that's an old trick. Okay, so you're confident that if you get the signatures, it'll pass. I mean, or fail. How does it go? Yes to fail.
It will be
So yeah,
successful
it
in
really is a
overturning
dipsy
the
doodle.
tax and fees. Yes,
Okay, all right.
I'm extremely
What,
confident.
anything else, Mike, that you want to tell us about your numbers here?
Well, it was interesting, the kind of the audaciousness of the tax increases, the doubling of the registration fee, the tripling of the title fee, were things that triggered voters. Those
Hmm.
were the things they objected to the most: tripling of fees, doubling of fees, and then increasing the gas tax, essentially 6 cents a gallon, which is about, I think, about 16 cents, 16% increase.
Hmm.
Who's getting a 6%, 16% increase in their wages? Nobody.
Yeah,
And if
nobody.
you're on a fixed income, this is going to hit you hard. So I think Oregonians have just had it.
Yeah. Well, they're so greedy. I mean, these people are so greedy. People sometimes they say, "Well, government's not greedy." Yeah, they are. They're same people. The same people. You call the people who run corporations greedy? Well, guess what? It's those same kind of people with the same time kind of whatever it is we do as humans have decided that they are going to go for the gusto and they're going to take as much from you as possible. Now, if you don't call that greed, I don't know what to call it. I mean, that is absurd. Just absurd.
Yeah, it is, especially in light of the reports that have come out recently that have found Oregon to be one of the least business friendly states in the
Well,
country, one of the
well,
highest
yeah,
tax states, business taxes in the country. They're making business very unfriendly, and we're losing, frankly, a lot of employers. We're losing the tremendous layoffs at Intel now
yep,
and other high tech firms, because of the business unfriendly climate. People are being coaxed to go elsewhere.
yeah. 80th and out of 81 DBAs that for real estate. I mean, that's nasty. And
Yeah.
and what really galls me is that they and the leadership in Portland and Salem have decided that we're just going to pretend that the riots of 2020 and the continuing unrest at the Portland ICE facility have not really been happening. But in fact, their inability to deal with that violence just telegraphed to the rest of the nation that they shouldn't even bother trying to make a life in Portland or the surrounding areas because it's dangerous and they won't do anything to stop it. And that goes, Mike Riley, for businesses too.
It's true. It's a downward spiral, and the fact that the education system is failing. Oregon is something like 47th out of 50 in terms of education quality. Who wants to
Oh,
bring their
yeah.
child to a state where the public schools are in disarray?
No, they don't. Nobody does. And they, of course, are run by the teachers union, which is
Right.
endorsed and wholly owned, has whole ownership of Tina Kotek and all the rest of the Democrats there. There's really no independent thought in the state of Oregon, except for those people who do not comport with the usual line, which is what the Democrats are pushing. And it's really sad. It really makes me sad. I remember when Portland was super vital. You know, and it makes me really kind of wish. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying it because I never thought Vera Katz was the best mayor ever, but she's looking golden compared to these lame brains.
Yeah, Vera Katz was kind of a very pragmatic politician, and I think she ran things very in a very businesslike fashion.
Yeah.
Very different type of politician than we see today.
Mike Riley, keep an eye on it, and we'll circle back, I guess, next time, and we'll do a special, how did it go on the West Coast, West Coast report of the Adult in the Room podcast. I thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Victoria.
All right, special first edition West Coast, West Coast podcast on the Adult in the Room podcast to just keep you updated on the nuttiness of what's going on the West Coast, the Mest Coast. All right, till next time, take care. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode of the Adult in the Room podcast. We do not take you for granted. We appreciate every single person who tunes in every week to listen and watch this program. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday, live streaming on Rumble, and then on every other podcast platform shortly thereafter when we can port it over and get it over there as soon as we can. All the shows can be found at victoriataft.com, where the censorship regime has been banned by me. Follow me on social media at these names: Victoria Taft, the Adult in the Room podcast, and the Victoria Taft Show. Send media inquiries, or any others for that matter, to victoria@victoriataft.com. And here's a big ask. Would you please subscribe, share, like, comment, recommend, and give this program a 5-star rating where you can? We really appreciate it. We do not take that for granted either. Follow my work at, you guessed it, victoriataft.com. PJ Media, I write tons over there. Flamingo Audiobooks, and of course the radio. I don't do this alone. This show is produced and engineered by Overall Media. 1A Cast is responsible for some of the Adult in the Room podcast's imaging. Logo design by Hageman Creative. The Adult in the Room podcast is produced at Flamingo Road Studios. All rights reserved.